And we're live. Welcome, Corey.
Thanks for having me.
So,
Nice new studio you have here.
yeah, thank you. It's great to sit here and connect with old friends. So, we've known each other for quite some time, but how long you been in real estate now?
Just coming up on 2 years.
Nice. How you like it?
I love it. I do. Yeah, so far there's not something I don't like about it. I've really found everything kind of challenging and engaging, and I've had good, people in the industry that were willing to help me out. So I've had some good mentorship, and yeah, it's been great.
All right, let's be honest though. What surprised you, or what was the biggest eye opener for you getting into the industry?
Good question. Off the top, honestly, I can't really think of anything. Coming from the hospitality industry, I was used to nights, weekends, kind of always being on call. So far, I've loved the negotiation aspect of it. I feel like I made this decision, well informed. I didn't take it lightly, and yeah, I did research, and I feel like I understood the industry well, and it's something I've thought about doing for a long time. So I made the leap, and so far, nothing's taken me off guard too much,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, so, and not to come at you right off the gate, right? But I mean, so it's 2 years, right? So let's look at that. So you pretty much joined real estate when the market started to take a turn, right? So I mean, in my eyes, I see that as definitely an asset, right? There's a lot of people that got into the industry when times were a lot better, and then they didn't really fully expose to what it meant to be in real estate. So what's that been like for you? And I don't know, what have you noticed in the market from when you started to where it is today?
Yeah, I would totally agree that it was an asset. A lot of people said, "Oh, you got in at the worst time. You're an idiot." But I find, uh, get in when the going's tough, and if it gets better from there, then amazing. I've definitely talked to some agents in the industry who, experienced that downturn, but for me, I know nothing else. So it's it's all I know. It's all I know, and so I've learned that you got to be prospecting, you got to be canvassing, got to be making those relationships, working your network. But by and large, it's like I said, it's all I know, and it's been good. And if it gets better from here, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, for sure. So I know you were at a little bit of a conference yesterday. How was that?
Conference was great. It was great. Yep. Had some good speakers. Some, particularly the panel of kind of senior economic advisors. There was Sal Guertieri from BMO and Peter Norman of the Altus Group, both kind of senior economic strategist, advisors, that kind of thing. They just laid out very kind of a macro forecast, particularly the issues of tariffs came up.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a current talking point for a lot of kind of economists. They mentioned how that might affect the Canadian market. Obviously, it's not looking good. We've got the reprieve for 30 days. I know there'll be some people will look back. I've heard April 1st is a date when that'll be kind of the day of reckoning when we see what the final tariff situation will look like. And they just mentioned how tariffs can affect unemployment, how unemployment could affect the market. We're obviously lucky here in Ottawa. We're, I think we're about 5.5, maybe just under 6% unemployment. So we're generally a percent or two under the national average. Obviously, we owe that to the government, which could change with the election coming up. But overall, it won't be great under tariffs. But again, Ottawa might be insulated. So yeah, the conference was great, particularly that panel. There was a lot of takeaways. What about yourself? I know you've been in this longer. You've seen the ebbs and flows. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, every day's a new adventure here, right? We're all just trying to figure it out. And, again, that's why I like looking at it from economists' points of view, that kind of stuff, right? When I'm following the market, I'm looking at months of inventory. I'm looking at really what we're seeing, what we're seeing on our listings, how many showings we're getting, how many offers that we're getting, how fast we're seeing homes sell. But, when you're looking at overall outlook, you got to consider things like unemployment, debt, right? Delinquency payments, all that type of stuff. So I'm always interested to find out what is going on with people's mortgages, especially when we have so many up for renewal, right?
Right.
And there's so many aspects that we're always going to looking at. It's so hard to predict, right? I think that's the other thing too. It's when COVID happened, my first reaction is like, oh, the market's going to crash, right? Because it had been so hot. 2018, 2019 was way different than the previous 5 years, right? It was really a buyer's market, and it started to be a seller's market then. Then when COVID happened, I thought, oh, the market's unsustainable. The prices have already got so high, and obviously that was the exact opposite of what happened. The market's going crazy, and so I tend to look now at like, okay, what is the overall, effects of what's going to happen, right? So, it's hard to say. Like, I guess when you're looking at the economists when they're talking, were they talking about Ottawa specifically, or were they talking about Canada as far as with the tariffs and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it was definitely a macro kind of national outlook, but they did kind of touch on how that would relate specifically to Ottawa. It was an Ottawa specific conference. And like I said, they kind of touched on the fact that our unemployment tends to trend a little bit lower than the national average. So we can sometimes be insulated from the effects, but the tariffs are not going to be good for Canada across the board. So obviously they're hoping that, they can negotiate and keep them off the table. So yeah, it'll be an interesting couple months. Like I said, April 1st is kind of the day of reckoning. I know the reprieve's only for 30 days, but they have some special task force that are coming out with reports and reporting to the president to make recommendations April 1st. So I think we'll know more. But like you and I have said many times, the spring market tends to spring well before spring actually gets here. We've looked at the numbers from the last 5, 10, et cetera years, and it seems that in January, February, the market has already taken off, and by the time spring comes around, things have generally peaked. So we'll see if that continues. Obviously, no one has a crystal ball, but the market might have already kind of heated up and then started to cool down by the time these tariffs are introduced. So we'll see. I think the big thing is we'd like to avoid that. Overall, it's not going to be great for anyone, our country or theirs. So,
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely something that don't want to come off as salesy, but like that's really what I see is like looking back to COVID, right? When I really thought, oh wow, so much uncertainty. Maybe the market's going to go down or whatever, right? And it did the opposite. And then it's kind of the same thing right now. It's like if someone is looking at the market and saying, okay, well, I don't know what's going to happen with these tariffs, so I'm going to wait to buy. But at the same time, right now, we're seeing bidding wars. We're seeing prices come up, right? So it's like if someone is going to wait those 2 months, to see what happens with the tariffs, and then we find out that nothing really happens with the tariffs, or that in fact, because the tariffs happen, the cost of construction goes up, meaning that the new homes cost more, and in fact causes the prices to go up. And waiting actually costs them the difference of owning a home or not, right? Because yeah, we have the tariff situation going on, but we also have the fact that interest rates are coming down, and that's another thing that I heard is that if the tariffs are in place, well, the economy's in trouble, so they're going to have to drop the interest rates. So what happened last time they dropped the interest rates, right? Does it actually accelerate the home prices, even more? And
right.
and does I think that's the biggest thing is like I'm never going to try and predict the market, right? But every time since I've been starting, all I heard is that the market's going to crash, and it's only gone up, and like yeah, sure, that's maybe his famous last words, but I don't see it in any other way because there's so much pent up demand, right? I'm looking at the rental rate over like the last couple of years, where the prices have come up, right? Prices have still come up in the last couple of years, but the amount that the rental rate has come up the last couple of years, that it's becoming now, it's like, okay, why would I rent a townhome for 2,700 when interest rates are gonna have a three in front of it soon, right? Like right now, we're seeing interest rates, the fixed and the variable, are at the same, and we've seen the bond rate come down, meaning the fixed rate's probably gonna come down, and most likely we're gonna see interest rates with a three in front of it in the next couple of months, which is a typical interest rate. So, when the prices have gone up over the last couple of years, while the interest rates were extremely high, going back to normal terms, what is really gonna happen in the market? That's the thing. Is like macroeconomics, they play a part. And for sure, I mean, the country is very big and different in different areas, but looking at a city like Ottawa, where we have the same average income as people in GTA, but our home prices are still 50% less, and we have a better insulation when it comes to unemployment, that kind of stuff. I don't know if you're on the, on the line of deciding when's the right time to buy. Like, I think the right time to buy was 2 months ago.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. I also, as a macro statement, love time in the market over timing the market. I think if you need a place to live, don't get caught up too much in these market reports. And then, funny enough, when you bring up crash, a speaker yesterday said the two highest search terms online are real estate agent and real estate crash. So it's always in the back of people's minds, but Peter Norman from Altus Group mentioned he expects interest rates to come down a point or two this year, which is exactly what you said. It'll go back to very low interest rates. We might need that to keep the economy kind of moving at a good pace with these tariffs looming, or if they're implemented. So we'll see if there's an offsetting effect there with, the tariffs bringing construction prices up, maybe raising some uncertainty in the market, but then the interest rates kind of counteracting that. So, don't want to predict the market at all, but it will be interesting to see how this plays out.
For sure. I mean, time will tell, but I can take a look at, the last 5 years, and even in years interest rates went up, the market went up this time of year. So I don't predict we're going to see anything different with interest rates coming down.
Totally.
So what about you, man? Any crazy horror stories or, great success stories so far in your real estate career?
Been lucky to not have too many or any horror stories for that matter. It's been pretty smooth sailing, which I know is definitely going to change at some point. I've had great clients. I've had great mentors who have helped me along the way when I needed the help. And now, kind of coming into my second year, I feel like I've got that confidence and the I won't say expertise, but the knowledge to kind of get these deals done in a efficient, fiduciary manner. We were talking before this about one deal that my clients basically said they were willing to pay full ask. They love this property so much on the Madawaska River, gorgeous property, and it'd been on the market 160 days. We were going into the winter and the holiday season when things tend to die down a bit, the market slows. And I just saw an opportunity. I'm like, you know what, we can get this property for less. They've already done a drop. I think they need to drop it again. And the clients were like, you know what, we trust you. But they were happy to pay full ask. I'm like, we're going to get it for less than ask. I think we got it for, about 30 grand under, which was closer to what I had kind of stated as the real value. But you did mention that, sometimes, the client is in the driver's seat. They're the ultimate boss. They get to make the plays, and you don't want to cost someone a dream home or dream property because of your ego, right? Because you thought something, and maybe your thumb wasn't on the market as close as you thought. So I always take kind of any advice that someone wants to give me right now. I'm still very new. I totally understand that, and I take any and all advice and try to do my research, my due diligence, And but yeah, so no horror stories too much, lots of successes, and hopefully lots more successes, but I will be ready for the horror stories when they come.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Um, I see a lot of things happen. I've been through a lot of things, and the best thing that we can do is always just highlight the horror stories with each other. That way you don't have to go down that same path, right?
Right.
And I mean, touching on what you're saying there of looking at getting the client the best deal, it's ultimately like that's my favorite one, right? Because everyone wants a deal, but sometimes a deal doesn't happen because we trying to push a better deal, but a better deal has to be acceptable for both parties, right? And ultimately, again, we're looking at home prices, right? And what is it worth? Like the price only really matters if you're looking at selling it tomorrow, right? But if it checks all the boxes, and I mean obviously the price matters, you can take that hyperbole a bit, but like what I mean is that the difference between 5 or 10K or even 20K, right? It's like if we say, like, let me back up. My favorite question is when I'm walking through the house with a buyer and the buyer says, "Well, what do you think about this home?" Because when I got into the real estate, I would make the mistake of actually thinking of what I thought about that home. But what I think about that home doesn't matter because I'm not buying the home. I got
Right.
different tastes than the buyers, right? So I used to convince people that, well, no, you don't want to buy this home, right? Or like,
Because you didn't want to
because
buy the
I didn't want to
home.
buy this home,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it checks all their boxes for them, right? Or
Right.
like, oh, I wouldn't pay that much for that home, but I'm not them,
Yeah.
right? And not to say that they're going to overpay for it because they're going to see value, right? Because this is the difference. It's like I'm going to tell them like, okay, well, no, I wouldn't pay more than this for that home. I put that in their head, and all of a sudden they don't get the house that they wanted, the house that checks all the box, the house that solves their problem, the house that gets them that they're going to stay in for the next 20 years, right? Because I didn't see the value in it. So I mean, obviously I'm going to rant now, but
No, I
that's
get
what it
it.
is. It's like it's sometimes you have to objectively like this is what I do. I tell them is like doesn't matter what I think about the home. I can show you what similar homes have sold for. I can show you what the market says it's worth, but it's worth what you think it's worth, right? And some homes are always going to sell for more than they're worth. Some homes are always going to sell for more than what the neighbors have sold for because there's a certain value there, and some homes are always going to sell for less, right? And this is the other thing too. It's like, especially going to a market like this, right, where the last 6 months have been slow, and we're seeing it really kick off, right? And if you're looking to buy a house today, and you're going to base it off of what sold in January, what sold in December, what sold in November, you're not going to own a home,
Right.
right? Like, if every home sold for what the home sold before it, the prices would never go up. Yet here we are.
Right.
The prices always go up, right? So and it's this is a flip side, right? When we're sitting here in August, it's gonna be the exact opposite. We're gonna be telling sellers, hey, look, I know your neighbor sold for that much, but the market's changing, and if you wait to drop the price, you could be selling at today's price, or you could be selling at 3 months from now price, right? And you're gonna be chasing the market, right?
Right.
Wayne Gretzky, it's like you don't go where the puck is, you go where the puck's going. Right, so right now right now the buyer, unfortunately, yeah, you're gonna probably have to pay more than what the similar home sold for last month. But if you hold out and you think that you're gonna get that deal and you're gonna offer what the home sold for last month, you're gonna end up buying in 3 months from now for 20% more.
Right.
Not 20% more, but like 20%
An
more of the
example.
increase or whatever,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
you're gonna end up buying it for way more in 2 months from now than you'd buy today because you tried to save 5 grand today
Right.
based on what the neighbors sold for. So I mean, it's all relative, right? And I
And
think
back to your point, if the property ticks all the boxes, it's good for the buyer. Don't time the market. Don't buy the house that you want, that you need for your family, and things will fall into place. If you think you're going to get a deal, it's like catching a falling knife. Bad things can happen. You might not get the property you wanted. The market might just move past you. You never know. And so when you walk into that house and you get that feeling and you see, that it's going to give you everything you want and it matches all your needs, go for it. Put in a good offer. Don't dance around the issue.
yeah.
It's the property you want.
Well, I mean, again, and then it's the definition of what does deal mean, right? Because if deal means I want to get the absolute cheapest price, well, then, yeah, you can wait 10 months to do that, right? You can wait until November, December next year. But if deal is getting the house that's right for you, well, you probably can't wait, right? And what I mean by that is typically the lowest sale prices are going to be November, December, and January, right? But that's also typically when you have the lowest inventory. So it means that if you want to get a deal, meaning you want to get the cheapest deal in a house, well, then yeah, you can pick up whatever is on the available for cheap, but might not be that good.
Right.
But if you want a house that's right for you, the right house. Like you got to go when there's more inventory, when you have choices, when you can find what's available that suits you. And guess what? That's when the other buyers are out. That's when demand is high. That's when you can pay a little bit more. So what's the deal for you? Is it the right home or the right price? You can hit them both at the same time, but you could easily. What's it costing you to wait for that and ultimately not own a home?
Right. Yeah. So switch gears a little bit. The other side of supply, or I guess not the other side, but I'd love to get your take on what you see as like barriers to development. What's holding us back from building more homes? We all kind of know there's a supply issue. Maybe not on a micro level right now, but overall, we're a growing country. We're at what, 40 million people now. So I'd love to get your take on how we can start building more homes, the right homes, and faster to kind of fix that need or fix that supply crunch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not an expert in this field, but from what I could tell from talking to people, from talking to builders that I know well, I mean, you have a lot of factors, right? One factor is interest rates, right? When you're building, you're getting construction loans, that kind of stuff. Interest rates are high, and every delay that it takes is, another expense. And when we have a market like it's been the last couple of years where it's come up, but you know, not much, you're holding that property, whatever it takes you to build, you're just eating the costs. And then, can you even afford to build these homes? That's the problem, right? It's like the affordability for homeowners is so high, but the affordability for home builders is so high as well, right? And there's a lot of, I don't know, I'm sure you've seen in the news, builders that have gone bankrupt, right? Because there's also, you're talking about supply chain. Yeah, we have a shortage of supply still that delays everything. The delays end up costing money and holding costs and all that stuff, but you also have labor shortage, right? That's what really caused a major problem in COVID is all of a sudden the demand for all the laborers and laborers were able to double their prices and no show on jobs and that kind of stuff. They had the power because they were such a sought after commodity. And I think like both of those are getting better now, right? Interest rates, supply, laborers, they're all getting better. But then we still have the city regulations, right? Go to, and again, I'm not an expert on it. I can't, but I mean, you go to places like Dubai and you see what they're building,
Right.
and you know that they're not having the red tape that people are having to get through in Ottawa, right? Like Ottawa right now, we have a housing housing affordability crisis, we have a housing availability crisis, and yet it's difficult to get your permit,
Yeah.
right? Like it's costly, it's timely, and yeah, I mean Ontario changed the rules, right, where you're able to build X amount of units, right? And Ottawa is not on the same page yet. There's rezoning happening in a lot of places this year that's going to make it easier, but it is still not anywhere near where it could be.
Yeah. Someone at the conference mentioned yesterday that 30% of new construction goes to permits, regulation, licensing, red tape. So when a third of the project is kind of sunk there, it makes the prospect of doing new construction a little tougher, a little harder. Some builders might hold off a little more. So I totally agree. I think there could be some, regulation's important and stuff, but I think there could be some deregulation in some aspects and some things that could help greenlight a few more projects. I think ultimately that's that's at the base of this, as you call it, crisis, which is totally true, and could get more units built and affordability could improve. So we'll see. Obviously, with the provincial election coming up, federal election, there's things like that on the table. So we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. Everything's always changing, and all we can hope is that it gets a little bit better every day with people raising awareness of the issues, and hopefully we get them fixed. So I mean, this is our time to just chat. Is there anything that you think is important for buyers or sellers or anyone looking at real estate this year?
I mean, I feel like we've gone over a large part of it. Personally, with my own clients, I the mentality or the saying that I'm going with is kind of stay the course. If you need something, if you need to upsize, if you're a new buyer and you want to enter the market, there's a lot of kind of different factors that might be holding you back. I'm happy to go over them in individual case by case basis, but largely it's stay the course. Don't worry about timing the market. And no one has a crystal ball, So do what's right for you, do what's needed, and if you need any advice, I'm there for you. We can go over it in depth. It's largely what I'm telling my clients, and yeah, it seems to be working, and it's given some confidence and some certainty in an otherwise uncertain market. But I like to have a positive outlook. I like to base it on research, base it on stats, numbers, studies. But at the end of the day, I'm not a doomsday kind of sayer, and I like to have a positive outlook. And I think things work out when you do the fundamentals right. So, what about
Yeah.
yourself?
Well, that's the thing is there's always another reason to second guess things and whatever, right? And um, there's always a curveball, but I mean, people need to live somewhere, you know. And the thing is, my biggest pessimism, I guess you could call it, like I'm very optimistic on the Ottawa market, very very optimistic. And the one thing I was concerned about is interest rates being high with the remortgaging, right? So I think 80% of the country is up for renewal in the next 2 years,
Right.
right? So there's two ways that people were locked in, right? People were either locked in at a fixed rate. I mean, I guess there's three ways, right? They're locked in at a fixed rate, in which case they're about to renew and they're going to renew at a much higher rate. So, their affordability, cost of living changes. There's people that were locked in at variable rates that, well, one, they could have been paying a variable rate where their actual payment went up, and so they've already been through it. So they're all right. Only getting better for them. But there's the people that were locked in a variable rate where it kept their payment the same, but it changed their amortization, right? So they were essentially making interest-only payments, and so when they go to renew again, their payment goes way up or whatnot, right? So there's a lot of regulations that were changed in December to help people like that, being able to not have the stress test, right? So they're able to shop around the rates. Like until then, banks basically had you locked in, right? Like if you're signed with your bank, a big thing for mortgages, as you know, is the qualifying rate, right? So you have to qualify for a higher rate than what they actually are. And so banks typically are able to get return customers to sign on the dotted line at the whatever interest rate they say, because they can't afford to switch banks because they don't qualify at the stress test, right? But now, because people are going to be able to switch, then now they can shop the best rate, which means the bank who was going to tell you a certain rate is now going to have to tell you a better rate. So that's a really positive thing. And now that, like, again, so if all the focus now is focused on tariffs and like what's that going to do to our economy, well, the thing is that if the tariffs are implemented, which I'm not sure that they're going to be, right? But if they are, I'm looking at COVID again, being like, oh, we were super scared about what was coming to the economy, and the housing prices shot up. Because what's going to happen is that they're already planning to drop the interest rates. But if the tariffs are in place and that puts serious pressure on our economy, they're gonna have to save it by lowering the interest rates.
Right.
So what's gonna happen? If we're at the same housing shortage, and now the interest rates are dropped again, with the affordability changing so much. So, I mean, that's the other thing too, is like we can't predict what's gonna happen because there's so many new factors getting thrown at us every day, right? But
30-year amortization,
yeah.
FHSA, and a whole new savings account. So, yeah, a lot of these things I think are largely positive, but they're not going to slow down the market by any means. They're making it more accessible to more people, and so I totally agree. And we're a government town. I think almost 50% of jobs in this city are with the public sector, and so we I mentioned earlier in this conversation, we're largely insulated. We don't see the ebbs and flows as much. So I'm super bullish on the Ottawa market, despite all these kind of risk factors.
What's the thing? The last 2 years, people I've talked to, 80% of people have told me they're waiting for the interest rates to go down. Okay, so interest rates are coming down. So how many of those 80% actually become buyers at this point, right? The other 19% told me they were waiting for the price to go down, So say all hell breaks loose and numbers do come down, right? Like you still have so much pent up demand that brings it right back up, right? Like it's how many people are sitting on the sidelines.
Right.
So that's always what I've been saying. It's like there's just too many people on the sidelines. There's too much demand that, all it does is if things don't go up like they're looking they're going to go up, it just increases the amount of buyers that come back, right?
Right. We've got a lot of land in Canada, but the land near cities where people want to live is finite, and so there's only so much, right? And we can build up, but as we've talked about, that's not exactly happening as fast as it needs to. So, yeah, I totally agree. Tons of people on the sideline. I tell those people when they're potential clients, you might sit on the sideline your whole life. I know people who have been sitting on the sideline for 10 years, not professionally, like friends of mine, waiting for this big C word, big crash, but.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the same thing about Bitcoin, and wow, I wish I bought some of that.
Don't get me started. Anyone who knows me that's watching this does not want me to start that conversation. They've heard it enough. Yeah, don't even get me started there.
Yeah, well, that's
Love
the
my
thing.
Bitcoin though. Love my Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, at the end of the day, and I'm so bullish on Bitcoin. You can't live in your Bitcoin, and so real estate, I see as, despite some people speculating on it, I see it as a necessity. I don't like to speculate too much. I don't like to say, you're going to make this much money or this is where the market's going. I truly believe in kind of a cost basis of what it's going to change your lifestyle versus renting. And like you mentioned earlier, rental rates have come up quite a bit. The conversation is not as easy. The equation is not as straightforward as it once was, where if you were renting for $1,000 less and you put that $1,000 into the market, you would come out ahead. It's got a lot tighter. And furthermore, I mean, I rented for a long time. There's a certain calmness or a certain security that you get with owning your own place. You can't be evicted. When it comes to condos, they can't tell you, what to do. I guess they can if you are in a condo, but which is why I personally go row houses if or detached, semi-detached. But I get it. Condos serve a place, and I just overall I'm very optimistic for the Ottawa market. I tell my clients that unless you're looking to move in, let's say, less than 5 years, sometimes I even go as low as 3. You're not gonna end up underwater. You're not gonna take a haircut selling. Obviously, if you have a shorter timeline, then sure, renting makes a lot of sense. You can be flexible. You can go live somewhere else. But if Ottawa's your home, like you and I have called it for many decades, and that is in the foreseeable future, I think buying makes a lot of sense right now.
For sure. I mean, it's like shooting this today. It is February 7th, and I'm expecting the average price point to be up significantly 1 month and 2 months from now.
I would agree. We're at the Ottawa Real Estate Board released their monthly report for the last month, January. Composite benchmark price $649,900, up 5.2% from January of last year. Do you want to make a prediction on camera here?
What we're gonna see, like what it goes to by March.
Yeah, I
From
think we
from
agree
January.
that maybe end of March, early April is when the spring market is already sprung, which I know is counterintuitive. A lot of people think that's when the market starts to heat up, but we've seen the numbers, we've seen the stats. By April 1st or mid-April, the spring market has sprung and things kind of start to slow down a bit. So let's say by April 1st, maybe you have me back April 1st and we can go
Yeah, for sure.
go over
Yeah,
the numbers again.
for sure. I think if we're like, so I didn't see the numbers today. So if we're at 650 now, it's very very close to 7, if not a 7.
Yeah, I can't argue that. Can't argue that.
Cool, man. Well, I guess we're gonna shoot another one at the end of April.
You see how I just worked that in?
Yeah.
Your nice new podcast studio here.
No, it's perfect. Love it.
Having me in. So
Yeah.
I'll definitely come back and follow up on those numbers.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for your time.
Cool. Thank you, man. Always.
Until next time.